We planned this video as a finale to our 2022 track season, a proof of concept for having a viable alternative road trip and racetrack capable vehicle, and of course a distraction from our NSX's predicament discussed elsewhere on the channel. If successful, it would have marked a turning point in the long burn rescue project, which is how I would define our now 4 years of Lamborghini ownership. Although we did follow through on the promise made in the last video, the rest of that, as you'll see, did not quite pan out. The next video that you see this car in will be from a racetrack somewhere. Well, hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. I'm Richard.
I'm Liz and this is Lap of the World.
We are out here on a slightly dreary looking day at Talladega Grand Prix Raceway for what was supposed to be our first track outing with our Gallardo here, as well as some other tests that we'll still have forthcoming just in a different format. Unfortunately, this has been a bit of a fail-tacular for us. This is 2 events now in a row where we're going to have a car kind of limping off the track. Well, this car never made it on the track, actually. We got here, so the car has not left a drop of oil in my garage, and we actually had our son go out there now that we're down here and confirm that it was still dry when we left. But this morning, it has decided to begin to lightly hemorrhage oil. I checked it when I got to the track. It was a little bit low, and we found some puddles underneath. We proceeded to move the car and then check on the status of said puddles, and they came back. So, it was more of a leak than we were certainly comfortable with taking out on track, especially with other people in the wet. It's already going to be slick out there. We don't want to be that guy. So
luckily we're not too far from home, and the kind people here have places for us to store it to come back.
So the current plan, we'll keep you kind of updated. We're just going to do this run and gun vlog style for the rest of the video here. But that's the short, quick, and dirty. Is the car has a big-ish oil leak. We think we know where it's coming from. It's not terminal in this case, fortunately, but it is, again, more than we're comfortable getting on the track, of course, and also it's sketchy for a roughly 4-hour drive home. So we've got a kind gentleman offer his a dry space for us to kind of investigate a little bit further that's not too far from the track. We think we can probably get the car over there. I've dumped the extra quart of oil in just as a precaution. We'll reevaluate and then go from there. Yep,
we should get on the road while the track is about to be cold.
Yeah, that's Talladega Grand Prix Raceway. They have a little. We are inside the track border here. You can see some railroad style crossing gates in the background that they will in between sessions lift to let us through. So before we get to the end of the story though, let's rewind a bit and fill you in on how we got to this point. Talladega Grand Prix Raceway is currently among the closest circuits to our home in East Tennessee. Built in 1985, it's a smaller circuit at 1.4 miles, and I rate it among the best of what I would call starter tracks in the Southeast, if not the entire US from our experience so far. Originally designed by Edge Bargy for motorcycle use, there's only one track-adjacent section of wall on a lap, and all of the turns have pretty generous runoff. Little Talladega, as it's known colloquially, is not a new track for us. In fact, in a deliberately circular pattern, it was also the first proper track to which we took the black NSX towards the end of its track-worthiness trials, as we'll call them. It only made sense then for this to be the venue for shaking down the Gallardo before it potentially sees service for more adventures until the NSX is back in the garage. The track itself hosts semi-regular streetcar days like this at a very reasonable price point, so Liz and I signed up for one in early December, packed some tools, and booked a night in nearby Oxford. The Gallardo seemed to make the trip down with no outwardly apparent hiccups, which led us to get up and drive the short distance to the track on a Saturday morning and start our preparations. What followed could be considered a case study on the importance of pre-flight checks before taking any car on a track. The tire pressures all checked out, lugs all torqued to spec, and all gauges were reading nominal, but completing the Gallardo-Specific oil check ritual yielded a disturbingly low level on the dipstick. This led to some undercar investigation that revealed a significant leakage. Had we not checked the oil morning of, we could have easily had 2 cars with terminal bearing failures, or caused either of us or another enthusiast to have an avoidable incident due to leaving a 10W60 slick in our wake. At this point though, we are back to where we left you at the track, still needing to fully diagnose the leak and make a call on next steps. As I hastily stated in our piece to camera from the paddock, our new friend Taylor offered up some open space and a lift if needed in his shop so he could do some further diagnostics out of the weather. Liz and I followed him in his epic overlanding van about 20 minutes to the Foothills Fabrication and Services shop in Anniston. These guys specialize in off-road and other custom fabrication, and we're happy to at least vouch for their character, even if we didn't use them for any actual work. At the FFS shop, Taylor lent us a flashlight and borescope to poke around and see if we could isolate the leak. We also talked further to our son, who subsequently did find a decent-sized puddle in the other garage bay where he hadn't looked earlier, as the car had moved since he'd last been home from college. This helped us rule out anything immediately catastrophic and also at least guesstimate a rate of loss from the leak. At that point, our choices were leave the car at the Foothills Fabrication and Services shop with our gracious hosts and return the following day with a trailer. That would have totaled about 12 hours of subsequent additional driving, or we could start a drip, so to speak, and limp the car home at as low RPM as manageable. Since we'd established it had apparently sprung the leak on the last drive before we departed and had not suddenly evacuated day of, we knew it had made it to Alabama from Knoxville without losing any critical mass of oil. So we elected to take the most time-efficient approach and limp the car home, taking extra stops to check the oil at short time intervals, until we knew the current rate of leakage. Taylor got us started by letting us raid their shelves for some leftover new oil from a recent change in one of their trucks. Between Anniston and Knoxville, we then used about a quart an hour getting home, but the leak did not appear to worsen at all during our limp back north. And that, of course, lands us back here in the garage after a disappointing end to our track season, with some work on the Gallardo ahead of us. So now that we've had a chance to take a closer look at things, though, what exactly went wrong? Well, let me take you to the back of the car and just show you. So we're now looking from the rear of the car into the V of the V10 on the Gallardo, and you can see down here this black cap is the oil filter housing. Below that is the oil filter pedestal. Over here is a little solenoid or sensor rather, and then behind that, which is a little difficult to see because it's hard to get some light back in there, but that is a giant pool of oil. So we'll take a little zip tie here, see if we can agitate this. You can maybe actually see it a little bit, but I'm gonna reach back in here. Yeah, you're not gonna be able to see that probably at all, but I'm gonna kind of dip that back in there. What you can see, though, is that it comes out with a healthy amount of oil on it. So as it seems as usual lately, I've got a good news, bad news situation. The good news is we're 95% sure we know what it is, and 95% sure that it's not going to be anything terminal or that's really going to hamper us for hopefully too long. However, we are 100% sure that it is going to be an absolute pain to actually do the work on to fix. We've seen this elsewhere on the internet. If you kind of follow YouTube Gallardo DIY circles, you may be familiar with the Bull Rider, the other Richard. He has dealt with this on his channel. I think he had a small leak in a similar area on his Superleggera, and he dealt with it by pulling the whole motor out and doing some other stuff while he was in there. Unfortunately, there is no laparoscopic option for this, and there's no option but to open the patient. And you have to at least remove both the intake manifolds from the car in order to access this pipe that we think is leaking. There's one end of it is on the filter pedestal, the other end of it goes towards the front end of the engine and kind of tucks back in. And there is a seal on either end. Apparently, with advanced age, either of those can be up to question. I think it was like either an O-ring or a gasket or something there that's probably failed. So the part to do that with will be very cheap. However, we're also, unfortunately, because we have to pull the manifolds off, we're going to need those gaskets, probably some other ancillary hardware, and I probably will find a couple of things that I need to do while I'm in there just to prevent any future shenanigans. So then when we try and go and do this again in a couple of months, we are not going to hit similar roadblocks. But that is where we are approximately going to leave it for now. We appreciate you bearing with us through all of these car shenanigans. Unfortunately, the shirt that I'm usually wearing, not today, but the road trip, racetrack, wrench, and repeat, we've been stuck on wrench here for a little longer than we would like. So we will persevere though, and we will push through our problems, and we will try this back again. We will get this car on the track. And in the meantime, you can look for updates on the NSX as we have more on that situation forthcoming. Those will probably be the next videos that you watch. But with that said, I do thank you for watching this video. If you have anything to add to the conversation, please leave a comment down below. If you found this video useful or any amount of schadenfreude gained from it, don't forget to leave a like. If you want to see some behind the scenes, you can check out a link to our Patreon in the description down below. And if you're looking for last minute Christmas or holiday gifts, we do have a Teespring store that has some road trip and racetrack themed apparel. The link to that is also down in the description, and the proceeds from which will go towards probably some gaskets for this car, rebuild for the Gallardo, I don't know, maybe even a part or two for the poor Datsun over here, with all of my all of my shame and disappointment in the garage right now for cars that don't work or aren't finished. But right, welcome to the hobby, everyone, and if you aren't familiar. But that's where we're going to leave it for today. Again, thanks so much for watching. Thank you for your support. We will see you in the next one. I'm Richard, and this is Lap of the World.